meet you in the lobby lockdown. We've got Paul Worsteling from Channel 10's IFISH, and he's joining me today in lockdown. Welcome, Paul.
Good to see you. I am in lockdown. I'm locked down in my fishing room, so there could be worse places.
Exactly. And I just want to give people a quick background. You and I actually went to school with each other from grade 1 right through high school. So I think you're a year younger than me, but we actually know each other quite well through growing up, so in Cranbourne.
Yes, it's amazing the amount of people who pop back into your life that you grew up with, and it's really nice to catch up.
It is lovely to catch up, and I've been following your career, Paul. You've had an outstanding career, and I just wanted to speak with you today. And I have a lot of followers with Senior Stays. As you know, I've got Senior Stays travel website. They just adore fishing and follow you, no doubt. And I just want we want to go back to where it all started for you and your background. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and I suppose it's a really nice one for people to hear in a way, not because it's mine and it's all that interesting, but what it proves is that anybody in Australia particularly can pretty much achieve anything that they want to achieve. And you said before, we grew up in Cranbourne, St Agatha's, and went to St Francis Xavier. And with no disrespect to Cranbourne is not the greatest place on the planet if you're growing up that you could possibly turn into something good. It would be easy to go down a life of many other things. And I suppose the easiest way to put it is it's a very low socioeconomic area. It still is to this day. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that to come from Cranbourne, to come from a very, I won't say poor, but a family that didn't have a lot, it's very nice to have been able to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve and live my dreams. And there's not a day goes past and I don't pinch myself and just go, where did all this come from? And if I had have told 15-year-old me that one day I'd be doing the things I'm doing, done the things I've done, and just live the life I've lived, I'd literally tell you you're an idiot. I'd say, Paul, you're an idiot. That's not going to happen. So it actually feels very surreal. But I was just a kid who liked the idea of going fishing. Nobody in my family fished. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. My dad never fished. My dad just worked hard. And I just decided that I wanted to make fishing my life because I saw my dad work way too hard for too little result. And here I am at 47. I've actually made a bit of a go of it. I'm doing okay.
You've done well, and you've been very modest, because I tell you, I remember you at school, and you were always, one thing that always stood out to me is you were always a real go-getter, and I always remember you were always full of beans. You were always happy. You're always a happy kid. I remember you and I used to be the last ones on the school bus. I think they called it the tissue box. Remember the tissue box? And
Yep.
And I always remember you were always a happy guy, and I think you were a kid that had an open mind. So obviously you've taken that, whatever opportunities you've got, and you've run with them. And so, which brings me to you when you were a teenager. If you can just explain where your career started, because it started there in Cranbourne.
Yeah, it did. So I started working at Kmart in Cranbourne. My dad made me get a job when I was 14, which I hated because I couldn't go fishing as much as I liked. And basically worked my way into the sporting goods section because I didn't want to work in the plant section because that sucked. So finally got moved to sporting goods, and I got a little customer base when I was 14 years old because I was just so passionate about fishing. And eventually then I joined a local fishing club, and the guy who owned the fishing club decided to open a fishing tackle store. So I was pumped because I thought I'm going to get a job in a tackle store. I eventually moved from Kmart to get that job in the fishing tackle store. I think I worked there for at least a year or two without getting paid. Just wanted to be around people. It was my dream job. I didn't need money to make it work. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people. A lot of people, they want to be a pilot or they want to be a hotel manager, whatever, but they want to be there then. They don't want to start by sweeping the floor and doing the crap jobs. And my philosophy always was, no matter what job you're doing at the time, and I used to do some horrible jobs like clean the toilets at the fishing shop or sweep the floors at Kmart, I always just thought to myself, do the very best job you can do at anything, because you just never know who's going to be watching. And eventually the right people watched in the right places, and I just kept going. And being in that fishing circle, I joined the angling club, as I said, and I was lucky enough to win a few competitions. Then I won the junior championship, and then the next year I became a senior at 17, and I won the senior championship the following year, which had never been done, which is pretty cool. And I just kept, the more I got into fishing, the more I had to be into fishing. I've never done drugs, but I assume it was like a drug. The more I got of it, the more I needed of it. And it was just like, oh my God, what's next? And ended up going to uni. I did 4 years at Rusden. It's very hard to believe. I'm a physical education secondary teacher.
Fantastic.
I was laughing with a mate of mine this morning I went to uni with. I said that the greatest joy in my life is telling people I'm a secondary teacher of physical education because I just laugh.
Did you ever teach? Did you ever actually go into teaching?
I taught for 3 days emergency teaching. So I literally did 3 days while I was having a bit of a gap year after uni. And it was in that period of time that my boss rang me and said, I want you to buy the business off me. So I was 22. I had no idea about business as such, as in I had an idea, but I had no clue how it all worked because business, as you know, is pretty full on. So with the help of my parents, because they owned their house, they actually put their house up so I could use it as collateral. At the time, I didn't even know what collateral was, which is funny when you look back on it. So they put their house on the line for me to lend the money or borrow the money. I'm not sure what the correct English is there. And I basically then had this massive debt overhanging, and I was 22, still living with my parents, and I was working 7 days a week in the business. And it was amazing. I bought that business where I'd worked for 7 years previously, and it took about 4 days for the business to turn around and just grow ridiculously after I took over. Like I took over on the 9th of the 9th, 96, and I'll never forget the first 4 days was just normal old trade. On the Thursday, a bloke come in and dropped this big whack of cash on a heap of stuff, and it's like he just told the world that. And I think it was just the enthusiasm that I had and the energy. People wanted to be a part of it. And I had people that wanted to come and work for me for nothing just to be a part of my business all of a sudden. And so I made these incredible friends, and I had people coming from everywhere. And then I decided, and this is a very short version, but I'd been writing fishing articles for many years, and I'd been doing radio as much as I could and the local newspaper, all for free. Yeah. And I finally did get a gig where I wrote for a fishing magazine. They paid me like $150 an issue, and I was like, I still remember where I was sitting when I got the phone call. They're going to pay me. And then I was doing all this work, and I just thought to myself, a magazine article literally is about a week to produce because you got to go fishing, get the photos, then you got to write it. It takes a week, and for that week at the time I was making about $400. So I was actually going backwards because the fishing part of it was costing me more than that. And I thought if I could just get on TV for half an hour to promote myself and my business, I reckon that'd be worth about 1,000 fishing articles, the people I could touch. So I literally just started emailing and ringing Rex Hunt and just saying, you got to take me fishing, you got to take me fishing, you got to take me fishing. Well, I annoyed him for I reckon it was 2 years. I just never gave up. And we worked in the same circles because I had the fishing shop now, and I saw him at different events, and we were in the fishing thing together. So basically, eventually I got a phone call, and I was in Sydney at the time doing some work with Tackle World, and basically his production manager said, look, we're struggling to catch a fish. And now that I own a fishing television show, I know that's a real problem. Without fish, you struggle. And he said, any ideas? And I had no idea. And I said, yep, 100%, I can organise it. So he said, well, let me know. So I got off the phone. I quickly started thinking, and I thought, Port Albert, there's always good fish at Port Albert. I rang a guy I knew. So I rang back and said, this is the plan. These are the dates. Let's do it. And then he said, okay. And I still didn't know what the situation was. I said, look, do you mind if I come along and watch? Because I didn't even know if I was invited. They said, oh, yeah, you can come. So it was a Sunday afternoon. I worked till 6 o'clock, and then there's a knock on the back door, and Rex Hunt's there, and he said, well, let's go to Port Albert. So that in itself was huge for me because I'd grown up as a kid, and he had been probably one of my greatest heroes at the time, because if you're into fishing, you were into Rex Hunt. Yeah. So I'm in the car, we go down to Port Albert, and I think this is all pretty bizarre. I'm part of seeing this gig. So we share a hotel room, the dodgiest hotel room you've ever seen. I'll never forget, just before he went to sleep, he's in the bed next to me. He says, now, Paul, if I stop snoring tonight, wake me up. I said, why? He said, because I'm dead. And he snored, and I got no sleep. And the next morning, we get up at 4 o'clock, we get on the boat, and the guy says, oh, come over here. I said, why? He goes, I've got to put a microphone on you. I said, why? He said, because you're doing the show today. And I nearly fell over. So next thing, out of the blue, bang, here I am. I'm about to make television. And it was the most incredible day. It was a glass out, which you rarely get at Port Albert. My sinker hit the bottom. It was there for about 3 seconds, and I got this massive bite. Got a 20-pound snapper, which is unheard of. Put it back down. We made the greatest show ever. And then they said after that, got any other ideas? So I gave them another idea. We went out. We got hooked 7 mako sharks in a day, which is still my record by a mile off Phillip Island in the worst conditions ever. We still hooked 7 mako sharks. And then we went to Flinders Island to organise this next trip. And the producer walks down to me. I'm wearing tracky pants and a T-shirt on the beach fishing. He goes, Paul, you really need to start dressing a little better. And I went, what? Because I'm just a fisherman. He goes, well, now you're part of the show. You got to lift your image. And that was him saying to me that I actually had a full-time gig.
Wow.
And
yeah.
So I did that for 4 years. And all of a sudden, you're the co-host on the biggest fishing show in the country out of I say out of nowhere, but I'd probably worked about 20,000 hours for free to get to that position.
And that's important for people to know. That's exactly right. It didn't happen overnight.
I've taken about, 47 now, so I've taken about 32 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, and it's important for people to know. And that was before social media. Like this is all before social media.
And in a way, it was so much harder then because you just couldn't touch people unless you're on radio, TV, or in the newspaper. You couldn't touch people. It was very hard to. Like now, I always joke. You can have 2 followers on Instagram, and you're famous to those 2 people.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they see you every day, and if they saw you down the street, they go, "Wow, there's Paul. I follow him because he's got 2 followers." So it's a lot easier now to be Insta famous or famous, so to speak. Yeah. And that's why I want to be on television, because I just knew that it could wasn't about me, but I bought this business and I wanted my business because the way I wanted to be the best tackle shop in the world.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to do that, if I can sort of make myself semi-famous, people want to come and see me, they'll want to come and see my shop, and it'll grow. And it worked because literally being on TV just brought people in the door, and the business, it doubled its turnover in like 2 years, which is unheard of.
That's such a brilliant story. And you opened another shop too, because you had one in Cranbourne and now you've got one in Mornington, don't you?
Yeah, so there's been a few shops along the way. So first the one in Cranbourne, then we moved Cranbourne after 4 years to a location that was 3 times the size.
Yeah.
Then we moved that, then we extended that, so now it's 7 times the size of the original shop. Then we opened Shimano World in Berwick. New World Honda had a position there. I was there for 7 years until they changed their business plan.
Yeah.
So that was the first ever fishing tackle store in Australia, possibly the world, I'm not sure, that only sold one brand. And it was ahead of its time because it was called Shimano World, it only sold Shimano. And now there's a lot of those sorts of shops. If you go to DFO, you've got Nike shops, you've got Adidas shops, you've got Timberland shops. So it was so far ahead of its time, and it was awesome. Everyone said it'd fail, but it actually did really well. Yeah. And that was the stepping stone. Then I bought Bill Fisher Tackle in Frankston. And that's a long story, but that was a shop I shopped at when I was a kid. And basically, unfortunately, they went broke and had some massive bills. And I got a call one day from a debt collector saying this business was for sale. And I thought, why are you ringing me? And they were basically desperate for tenders. And I ended up putting a tender in. And I sort of just did it because I thought, look, it's an opportunity. And I literally went so low ball, it was ridiculous, thinking, look, and I got a phone call Monday morning saying I was the only person who put a tender in.
Oh, wow. So yeah.
I bought this business lock, stock and barrel. Like literally gave me the key to a business that I'd shopped at since I was 14 years old. And it was embarrassing what I paid for it. It was embarrassing, but it was great because what it allowed me to do was I tried to trade the business, didn't work. So we closed it down over 6 months. We then used the funds to start Tackle Boynton, which was a place I really want to own a shop because I live 10 minutes down the road. Yeah. And that basically funded the opening of that business. Now that business is 7 years old, and it's funny. I almost feel like I'm having an affair when I go there because it's all neat, beautiful. It's like the hot young blonde, and my old ragged wife's in Cranbourne, but she's been so good to me all these years. And I go and I shop at more because I'm close, but I actually feel like I'm cheating when I go there. It's really weird.
Oh, that's funny. Well, this is such a great story. I'll tell you what. And now your family, your wife and your son have now become part of the show too. So can you tell us a little bit about that? A lot of people wouldn't work with their family, but you've decided to work with your wife and son, and they do a wonderful job. They've got their own, their own celebrity themselves. So tell me a little bit about that. What was the decision making there?
So I've always worked with my wife. So my wife, her dad is the guy I bought the shop off.
Right.
So I've known Christy since she was 6 years old, and we've been mates since we were kids. So we grew up fishing together. She worked at the shop with me, and for most weekends, so I worked at the shop Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday throughout high school and uni. I was doing minimum 40 hours a week. So I did every Saturday and Sunday with her at the shop, just the two of us. We ran the thing. And then when I bought it, she worked Friday nights, like just 30 hours a week. So she basically followed the path I did. And when we eventually hooked up, obviously we already fished together. We knew each other. We were best mates. So we've always lived in each other's pockets. So she turned 40 this year. So for the last 34 years, we've basically worked, lived, breathed, haven't left each other's side. And the thing with being away and traveling, I have a simple philosophy. And if you're spending 20, like I travel up to 40 weeks a year when we're not in lockdown. Yeah. If you're spending 40 weeks a year away from your family, that family ain't going to survive.
It's not going to work.
No. And we try to never spend more than 2 weeks apart. Very rare that might happen, but about 14 days is the maximum before we start to get a bit stir crazy. So we'll work on those things. So they've sort of integrated into the show because they're part of my life and they've been traveling with me and whatever else. So, and then all of a sudden Jet comes along, and Jet is actually, his name come about because we struggled to have a child. We did 4 years of IVF. And when we finally figured out what the problem was, it was Christy has a blood clotting disorder, and we were pretty sure that her body was seeing any embryo a clot and trying to get rid of it.
Right.
That's the roundabout term. We think she was getting pregnant, but her body's just getting rid of it all the time. So they finally put on a drug called Clexane. Now, Clexane is the nastiest injection you'll ever have in your life. It's like you've got to do it in the abdomen, and it's like literally putting acid in somebody. It stings and it burns. So when she got pregnant, she had to have a Clexane injection every single day of her pregnancy. Now, I was filming the second series of IFISH at the time. This is in 2006.
Yeah.
And she didn't trust anybody to give her the injection except me, because it was 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. from memory. So she literally travelled all over Australia and stayed in some of the dodgiest joints ever just so I could inject her morning and night. And one of the dodgiest places we stayed in, and don't hate me, Tasmania, but a place called Cressy, in this dodgy hotel. It was just like a dorm. She sat there all day, watched TV, went for walks just so I could inject her morning and night. So when we finally had my boy, she'd obviously travelled and done all that stuff with him. Well, we decided to call him Jet because he'd travelled on that many flights in Vico that we thought Jet would be a cool name. And then I wanted a fishing name as well, so I came up with Reef. And Chrissy wasn't that keen because she's like, that's a bit corny. But then one night, it's all about how you deliver things. I remember I was in bed and I said, you know when you're going along in the boat and you're not catching, it's all barren, and you come across a reef and you just find life. I said, I want to call our boy Jet Reef because it's a sign of life. And she got all teary and said, it's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
So then we got this little boy. And I'll never forget the first time I put him on the show because he was there and I had him in my arms and he was like 3 months old. And he was and I gave him a kiss, said, see you later, I'm going fishing. And then it just sort of happened because we were a family and it was working, and people, I think too many fishing shows in the past and too many things have been really blokey, like have a beer, you get a bite, mate. And realistically, that's not what people want to see. What people have families. At the end of the day, I think for every person, whether you're husband, wife, whatever, your greatest goal in life is the happiness and healthiness of your family. That is it.
Yeah.
And that's why we do what we do. So I thought if people are seeing my family having a great time, that's going to inspire them to have a great time. And they're going to, maybe they can't, maybe they lost their child, or maybe they lost their dad, and we are able to bring them the joy that they can't have, but they can say, hey, that would have been nice to do. Or maybe we visit a place where they did go on a fishing trip once.
That's
or maybe
brilliant.
maybe they're just inspired because their life's crap at the moment. They're looking for something and they go, you know what, I'd like to go and do that caravan park trip they didn't catch. So life's out there and it's all happening. But the biggest thing I think people have problems with is being inspired.
Yeah.
Like you can buy a book I can buy a book on fishing and read it, but all that information's there already if I want to go and search for it. But people don't want to search. They want it put on their lap.
Yeah.
So just become about sharing our journey a little bit. Not almost Leyland Brothers type style, which I remember, but I didn't really copy that. It was just we're doing our thing.
Yeah.
And we were just rolling with the punches. And I was also and am extremely proud of my wife, and I'm extremely proud of my boy because like your kids, you love them to death. But because we worked so hard to have our child, I just feel that we're not more grateful, but we're sort of more grateful. It just didn't happen. We worked so
Absolutely.
I just want to be with them every second. And he, thank God, loves fishing. He's a fishing nut. He drives me insane. So in fact, when we get off this call, I'm going to do a little bit of drone fishing on YouTube with a bit of fun. But he loves it, lives for it. So why not do it together? And
that's brilliant.
And when you look at, like this morning, I was looking at some memories on Facebook. I had a spare 5 minutes. And 2 years ago, we were in Huskinson, Jarvis Bay, catching kingfish. think 4 years ago in the Cook Islands, 5 years ago we might have been in Florida, I think. And it was just, I'm just going, how? And this is, 3 years ago I was in Eagle Hawk Deck, Tasmania with him catching bluefin tuna and 1,000-pound swordfish. Like, and these are experiences that he's so lucky to have had, and for us to have them together, that's just awesome.
Isn't it? And actually that was going to be one of my next questions. And obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, and this must be an amazing time for you, like from that point of not being able to fish, because here in Victoria we're not allowed to even go fishing at the moment. So it would be killing you, I can imagine. But where has been your favourite destination in the world to fish?
That is such a tough question. I always say it's like people have 2 kids. Which one's your favourite?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You can't choose. But every area has its own reason. And I always do say I go fishing not to catch fish, but I go fishing for the people and the places. The wonderful people I've met around the world who have become incredible friends, and the places I have seen. I'm so lucky, because most people, if they can say a place, there's a pretty good chance of being there. And I go, yep, I fished there, I did this. And you don't just think about a place, you actually can see the streets, you see the hotel you stay, you see. And the one place comes to mind, it's Atataki, a very small place in the Pacific Islands that I've been to, in the Cook Islands in the Pacific. I've been there about 5 times.
Yeah.
And I met a guy called Itu, and it all come about. I was in Valencia. Christy and I went to Spain for the weekend once, which is a funny story. I was in Valencia. My friend Casey was racing his last MotoGP race. And we went over there to watch the race, and we're laying on the floor of his motorhome before the race. And he said, now I'm going to retire at the end of this year. Where do we go? So we're literally sitting there brainstorming. And I said, what about the Cook Islands? We had no idea what it was. We just threw it out there, started Googling, and we found this guy called Itu Davey, who was a local bone fishing guide guru. So we went to the Cook Islands with the 4 of us and our kids, met Itu, we become great friends. I just spent Christmas 2 weeks there again. It's just one of those places that when I'm there, I feel like I'm at home. And there's that many places like that around Australia, around the world. Christy says this beautiful thing. We just got back from Antarctica about a month ago.
Wow.
And she said, there's never a dollar you'll spend on travel that you'll regret.
No.
And we could have another rental property perhaps, or we could have some more money in the bank or a nicer car, but we've spent a lot of money on travel and we don't regret it, because I've lost way too many friends way too early. You just got to live life and enjoy it. And travel is one of those things you always, it uplifts you and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, and you learn so much from it. It's fantastic. If you weren't fishing, Paul, what would you be doing? What do you think you'd be doing if you weren't a fisherman?
Well, sadly, I'd probably be a PE teacher. And I say sadly because it would have lasted about 2 days, because I'm not great with rules and regulations. I would have been quite a lot. But the other love I have is real estate.
Okay.
And I did think a while back, like before the fishing thing, I did think that I might become a real estate agent, because I just love real estate. I love everything about it. It's my hobby. It's probably how I've made more money than anything else, because very average normal people can make really good money out of real estate if they buy and hold. It's that simple. I'll never forget my dad. I'd bought the business. I'd been in it for about a year, and my dad said, you need to buy a house. And I was like, are you an idiot? I've got all this debt. And he goes, no, you don't understand. You can't pay too much off. We get this tax bill. I didn't know how tax worked. I learnt that quickly. Yeah. So he said, go and buy a house. So I went and looked, and I'll never forget, I bought my first house. It would have been, I'm guessing, 1997 in Berwick. Paid $122,500 for it. And the rent was covering more than the mortgage, and I still own it today, and it's worth about $900. And I just thought, how easy is this? It's not, and they always say McDonald's doesn't make money on hamburgers, they make money on real estate. So I just love the whole concept that average Marapar kettle can put a little bit of money aside, have a go, and make some serious money to retire on. And I just reckon real estate's pretty exciting, because it when it goes up and it goes down, it goes up. It's a fun thing to be involved with.
It is. You're right. And it's, especially the last 20 years, it's just gone straight up. Now, what's been your most emotional experience whilst you've been travelling, where you've been somewhere you never thought this emotional experience would come, might have come at the most strangest time? Can you think of any time that really stands out?
There's hundreds, and I can't even begin to bore you with how many. But Well, look, one fishing one that is it's just so special. I fished for 20 years to try and catch a swordfish. And it's not a male, people listening, it's a swordfish. Scientific name Ziphius gladius. It was like being 18 and trying to hook up with a supermodel. It was never going to happen, like especially with a head like this. And I just wanted a swordfish so bad. So I fished for 20 years to try and catch one, 20 years. And in 20 years of traveling around Australia, fishing all night, miles offshore, I never got a bite in 20 years. So eventually I went to Florida to fish with the best guy in the world because I got a bite and I didn't hook it after all that. So I come home, but I'd learned how to possibly catch a swordfish because he showed me the technique. I just didn't know how to do it. So we went to Exmouth on holidays, one of my favourite places in Australia, and we saw a squid in the marina swimming along. And Jet said, "There's a squid, Dad, I'm going to catch it." So cast the squid jig out, caught the squid. We put it in the hotel room in the freezer, and we went fishing 2 days later. We're out there fishing. We caught everything. It's like 1 o'clock, and I said to my mate, "Why don't we try and catch a swordfish?" Like we'd literally caught everything you can imagine. So we rigged this squid. I put it down 600 metres using 2 bricks as a bait, as a sinker, and dropped it to the bottom. And it was down there for like 15 minutes. And my mate said, "Well, what does it look like when a swordfish hits?" And I said, and I turned around and said like this. And Christy said, "Look." And it was happening to my rod. I went, "No way." So I started winding, and we weren't quite sure. It's a funny thing, but you're using real heavy gear, and when swords get hooked, they swim to the top to see what's going on. So I couldn't feel much. And then next thing, we literally saw a swordfish. Now, I can't even try and explain what that meant. It'd be like, I got nothing. It's like it's something that's never going to happen in your life, like ever in a billion years, and it's just there on the end of your line after 20 years of hard work. Well, we grabbed the fish, we lifted in the boat. I was on the boat with Christy, Jet, and my friend. Quick video, we put a tag in it. Now, the other great thing is most people catch the first fish, like whatever, and they kill it because they want to weigh it. Well, I just couldn't bear to kill this fish because it was too amazing. So I put a tag in it, released it. And I'm not a very religious person, even though I went to Catholic schools and I went to church every Sunday till I was 18 years old. But I actually looked up. I remember the feeling. I just said, "If you're there and you're real, just take me now because my life is complete." And it was like I was numb for days.
Really? Yeah.
Because I'd accomplished something that I didn't feel was even possible. Like these things, it'd be like if you're a hunter and you found a unicorn. That's how I felt. And then once I figured it out, I did a lot more of it, and I've become pretty good at it. And it's funny, April 12, which is just a couple of days ago, we had a bit of a gag with my friends. They got me a T-shirt that says April 12. It's my sword-iversary. Because I went down to Tassie and I caught 3 swordfish in 3 drops doing some scientific work. And the biggest one, 270 kilos. And that's never been done in the history of fishing in Australia. And then a year later went back, April 14, which is tomorrow, I think. It's my sword-iversary of the biggest swordfish ever caught, 5 hours and 20 minutes on 37 kilo line. And I believe it could be the largest swordfish ever caught and released in the world. And would have been the biggest one ever landed in Australia. But again, I chose to let it go. We put a satellite tag in it, and that fish swam for 150 days. We followed its movement. So not only was I able to conquer the swordfish, but I'm pretty proud of the fact that I didn't have to kill it and hang it up and get a photo with it to try and prove who I was or what I was doing, because I think there's a bit too much of that. I think take a fish and eat it, great. But if you've got to kill stuff just for a photo, I think that's a bit sad.
Yeah, I think that's a great story, and I think with that story you've answered two questions. Another question I was going to ask is, tell us a fishing tale, one of your best fishing tales, which is probably that one, is it?
Yeah, look, there are many. I've got absolute crackers, but that for me is everything, and it was literally achieving the Holy Grail. And I felt a bit empty since, because it was like, if you're a mountain climber, once you climb Everest, what do you do then? It was my Everest, I climbed it, and now I'm like, all these other mountains aren't quite as exciting as that. So what I'm getting out of that is I'm really enjoying helping other people catch their first fish or their biggest fish, because I can never catch my first marlin, and I can never catch my first 40-pound barramundi. But I can watch and help someone else, and that's where Christy and Jet come in, or watch and help other kids. And I've been lucky enough to do some work with the Starlight Foundation, and I've taken some kids fishing who, it's really sad, but you're taking fish and they all want to do is go fishing, or I put them on my show, and just to see the smile on their face and to take them away from that moment they're in for a period of time, that's when you realise that that's another joy you can get from fishing. And fishing isn't just about catching something, put on a plate and eating it. It is way bigger than that.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. How have you been keeping yourself entertained while you've been in lockdown?
I'm very, very lucky in that I live on 3.5 acres. And normally my dad comes a day a week. He just loves potting around and helping out, but he can't come. So I've been mowing lawns. I've done things because I travel, as I said, up to 40 weeks a year. I'm never home. Which in it, some months I have not been home one day for the whole month at times. Christy's met me at the airport, swapped gear, have a cuddle, and then go again. Or she's then come on the next journey with me. So it's been very tough to do anything. So I've been cleaning my fishing room. You see behind me here, it's all looking very, very neat, very, very neat and tidy. So I've been doing the best to get on top of that. I top dressed my lawn because I've been mowing it. This is hard work. So I put beautiful soil and grass seeds. I've got a pig. I spent 3 days cleaning the pig paddock, just getting rid of dead leaves and just trying to make the place as perfect as it can be. And I think that work ethic that was instilled in me by my dad as a kid, and the fact that he worked so hard 7 days a week his whole life, I think I get great joy from accomplishing things. Yeah. You don't have to make money. You don't have to even be seen by anyone, but I can just step back at the end of doing a really menial task and go, that's done. Like I had a pile of soil in my driveway.
Yeah.
I was waking up in the morning excited because I thought I might actually move it all today. And that's really weird. That's just the sort of thing that floats my boat. So I get excited.
And it's something you don't probably usually do because, as you say, you're always out at sea. So
exactly. And mowing the lawn is just the most fun ever. I love it. So trying to spend a lot of time with the boy as well. But I am letting him play video games more than he ever has because he's locked down. But we're very lucky. We've got neighbours who live on 5 acres next door, and we share a fence. So we've been doing a bit of camping. We've got our caravan on our side, theirs on their side, and the fence is our border. And we can literally go down and have a drink in the evening, put the fire on and do the right thing, but at least get the mind working.
Sounds good. So you're holidaying from home.
Yeah, correct. And it's pretty good.
Now, tell us something that people would be surprised to know about you, Paul.
There's a lot of things. No, probably the biggest thing, everybody looks from the outside, and I'm very uncomfortable with the C word, which is celebrity. I'm no celebrity. I just get up and I seriously get up and have a coffee and then go to the toilet like every other person in the morning. The only difference I always say to my boy about my life than any other dad's life at school is that I film parts of mine. But what the butcher's doing or what the builder's doing, it's exactly the same. If they film that, then people would look at them differently, but we're no different. And I don't see myself as different, but I know other people do look. So it's a bit of a weird thing. But where am I going here? Basically, what am I trying to say? Basically, it's a bit of a weird situation that we're put in, but we're just doing normal old things, normal old whatever. And I'm a bit lost because I feel it's hard. It's like what star sign are you?
I'm a Taurus.
So and what does it feel like to be a Taurus?
Well, that's a good question. It feels, you know what? I think because I believe in this stuff, I like this. But for a Taurus, I've got to know what's happening. I've got to be in control, I suppose. And I like good quality things in life. Like if I'm going to buy something, I like to buy it and it's going to last. Yeah. So I suppose.
So you know how you feel, but it's very hard to feel like a Taurus.
Yeah.
And I know as a Scorpio, I know how I feel, but it's very hard to feel like a Scorpio. It's just what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people think, Paul's life is perfect because I've seen him on TV. He's a celebrity. I hate that word again.
Yeah, they've got it in your mind.
But what they don't see is the hard work. And one thing people don't know is when Christy and I were trying to have our boy through IVF, my niece passed away at 17 of an asthma attack, which was very hard for our whole family. She lived with me growing up. So
it's devastating.
Like my little sister. I had some major issues at work. And I don't know if I had a breakdown, but I was pretty close to it. And I literally thought I was going to die because I was in that much pain all the time. And after a year of tests, they figured out I had this thing called ankylosing spondylosis. Now, that is an immune disorder that the easiest way to describe it is every morning you wake up and you literally feel like you're carrying someone else on your shoulders all day. So every part of you aches. Your bones ache, your ligaments ache, your muscles ache, you feel tired, you get sore throats all the time. Basically, your immune system is shot. And some people have the gene and then it just takes something that triggers it and you're gone. So for the last, I was 30, I think I was about 30, easy, Jet's 13. It happened when we were pregnant with him. So 14 years, I literally woke up every morning feeling like I've got the worst hangover in the world. And when I fly in an aeroplane, aeroplanes are horrible. It takes me about 3 days to recover from the joint pain, the bone pain, the muscle pain. And I've probably been pretty sure I was going to die about 20 times in the last 14 years, because I always joke to myself, you can't be in this much pain and not die. So I've had to manage that in amongst a lot of other things. And I'm not too embarrassed to say there's been, I'll say many nights, quite a few nights where I've been in a hotel room somewhere all by myself in the middle of nowhere, and I've cried myself to sleep because I've been in pain.
That much pain.
I haven't seen my wife for a week, haven't seen my boy, had a tough day. There's a lot of pressure on, and I'm in that much pain that I've literally cried myself to sleep.
And there's no medication for that? There's nothing that you can take?
I've been on up to 15 different tablets a day. I was taking injections every fortnight, but they affect your immune system. So I actually made the decision about 12 months ago that I'm going to stop all medication and just see how I go, because and you know what? I've actually been as good or better than I've ever been.
Oh,
and
brilliant.
I'm just trying to keep moving, stay positive, do all those sorts of things. But if I literally, we do a bit of kayak filming on the show, if I sit in a kayak for half an hour, I can't walk for a day.
Right.
Every morning it's like stepping on. So and the only reason I'm even bothering to tell you this is just for people who are looking in at my celebrity life and all the wonderful things. There are many times when it sucks, but I don't allow it to suck. And my wife has a beautiful saying that she basically says, you get to choose who you want to be. You get to choose if you want to be the victim, or you get to choose if you want to beat it. And I just choose to beat it. I ignore it. And when I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, I always think, I'll wait 6 weeks. If the pain's still there, I'll go to the doctor. Normally after about 4.5, the pain moves and it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people, their life sucks. A lot of people, they haven't found the right person, or they're in a relationship that they're unhappy with, or they've got a shit job. You've got to understand other people have these similar problems. I obviously love my wife. I'm very lucky. But I've got my problems too. Everyone's got their problems. If you sit down on the piss with someone, have a good chat, doesn't matter who you are, people have got issues.
Yeah, everyone's human.
It's how you choose to deal with those. And I've had my struggles, don't worry. But I think people need to know that don't get upset because you think we're living this great life. We are, but we've still got our issues as well, and we just choose to work them as best we can. That's
great advice for people too listening. So thanks for that. Now, before we wind up, I've got one more question. What's next for Paul Worsteling? What are you up to next? Can you share anything with us? Anything exciting?
As soon as we get off this call, I'll be having another coffee. I need that bad. Look, I actually don't know what's next. This whole lockdown COVID thing has really kicked me for six. So imagine your whole life revolves around fishing. I'm talking every single thing I do is fishing. I own 2 fishing tackle stores. I have a fishing TV show. I'm in the fishing business with tackle, so everything, and it's gone overnight, which is, I never thought I'd be saying that. So my tackle stores, they're in limbo. I'm thinking about closing them very shortly because we can't afford to keep them open for the time being. And IFISH, after 15 years, I don't know if it's going to continue because I've moved the start date back to September to give me another 3 months. But at the moment, I can't travel. I can't talk to sponsors because they're either not in their business or they're not wanting to talk. So I just have to wait and see. So business-wise, what I am doing now, I'm seeing this as a really good opportunity because I feel like for the last 30 years, I've been on the hamster wheel. And I often said to my wife, I just would like to get off that hamster wheel and take a breath and enjoy the world. Because even though I'm enjoying it, I'm moving through it so quick, it's hard to smell the roses.
So true.
I'm seeing this as my opportunity to get off that wheel, just take a deep breath and enjoy. And even though it sucks, I'm trying to ignore the financial part of it, and just think, if I got this opportunity, what would I do with it? So I'm trying to live and love every day, trying to just enjoy being at home and the simple little things, and organising and having a fire and talking. Like Christy and I live and breathe together, but some days we don't talk because I'm just running or I'm away. And like, not as much as I'd like to. Not that you talk, but not those things you really just want to shoot the shit about or be deep and meaningful about. So we are, in that fact, I'm enjoying this, but long term, I'm hoping more of the same. I'm hoping I can continue my fishing show for a little bit longer. spend a bit more time with the family, which would be nice. I want to just dial the work down a little bit and basically just stop and smell the rose. I think that's the most important thing for all of us. We all try to create wealth. We all try to build castles. We all try to achieve mighty things. But if you don't actually take the time to enjoy them, what's the point? The old Chinese proverb I think I heard the other day was, at the end of the chess game, the king and the pawn go in the same box.
There you go.
And that really struck a chord with me, because at the end of the day, when you're dead and buried, it's all over, and no one's going to stand there and go, geez, what a great bloke. It's just about what you could actually achieve and get out of it yourself.
That's so true. That's so true. And exactly what you're saying, we're all going through the same thing at the moment. It doesn't matter whether you're poor, rich, who you are. We're all going through this at the same time, aren't we? And it just shows you, it's
and as I said to someone else the other day, I think it's a good time for the world to realise that greed isn't good. It's not a time to be greedy. It's just a time to actually go back. And Christy and I go for a walk every day about 4 o'clock for an hour around the neighbourhood. And I said there, it is so beautiful. People who normally wouldn't even look up, everybody's saying hello. People just want to talk to you. How are you going? There's the best sense of community I've ever felt. And I live in a beautiful community.
Yeah.
So if we take all those positives, it's actually been a really refreshing breath of fresh air. And let's all just get the most out of it. Let's do the right thing, because I do want to come out to the side. I want to go fishing, but it has been really, really nice.
Well, Paul, you've been a breath of fresh air for the show. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I've really, you've been an absolute delight, and I just love your passion. I think it just shows people what you can achieve with passion in life. And I thank you for being my guest today, and I'll meet you in the lobby lockdown.
Absolute pleasure. It was nice being locked down with you, and great to catch up after all these years. Thanks heaps.
Fabulous. Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Cheers.